Squamish Nation to make announcement at residential school site in North Vancouver. North Vancouver, News 1130, the Squamish Nation will be making an announcement Tuesday morning at the site of a former residential school in North Vancouver. The chiefs of the Musqueam and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, as well as a representative from the Archdiocese of Vancouver, will join members of the Squamish Nation at St. Thomas Aquinas Regional Secondary School. The Keith Road Catholic School is the site of a memorial to children who were taken from their families to the St. Paul's Indian Residential School, which operated between 1899 to 1958. The Roman Catholic school was operated by the federal government and the Order of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate. In 1931, the local Indian agent reported after an inspection that he suspected the children at Squamish were not being fed properly. In 1933, the Indian Commissioner for British Columbia described the school as a death trap and a fire trap. In 1935, the school suffered an epidemic of chicken pox. Overcrowding continued into the 1950s. In 1957 the building was condemned and closed 2 years later, according to the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission issued its final report on residential schools more than 5 years ago. The nearly 4,000-page account details the abuse inflicted on Indigenous children after they were taken forcibly from their families to institutions where they were forbidden to speak their language and punished brutally for any attempts to practice their culture. Physical and sexual abuse were rampant. No details have been released about the contents of the announcement, but it comes amid the confirmation of unmarked, undocumented graves at the sites of several residential school sites in BC and Saskatchewan that were operated by the Roman Catholic Church. In May, the Tk'emlúps Te Secwepemc First Nation confirmed, using ground-penetrating radar, that the remains of 215 children, some as young as 3 years old, had been found. The search of the site of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School, which was once the largest in Canada's residential school system, renewed calls for all former sites to be searched across the country. Less than a month later, the Cowces First Nation confirmed 751 unmarked graves were uncovered on the grounds of the former Mari-Eval Indian Residential School in Saskatchewan. Later in June, the Lower Kootenay Band said a search using ground-penetrating radar found 182 human remains in unmarked graves near Cranbrook, close to where the Kootenay Indian Residential School once stood. In July, the Penalacut tribe has confirmed more than 160 unmarked, undocumented graves at the site of a former residential school on their territory near Vancouver Island. Related, Catholic group that ran BC, Saskatchewan residential schools to disclose records. After the unmarked graves were located, something First Nations leaders have stressed was not a discovery but rather a confirmation of what Indigenous communities have long known. The Tk'emlúps Te Secwepemc First Nation and the Cowces First Nation have both said an apology from the Pope is a crucial first step toward reconciliation. One of the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in 2015 was for the leader of the Roman Catholic Church to apologize for its role in a system that saw 150,000 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children taken from their families and confined in conditions that constituted cultural genocide. We call upon the Pope to issue an apology to survivors, their families, and communities for the Roman Catholic Church's role in the spiritual, cultural, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children in Catholic-run residential schools, the Commission wrote.